first John Wick film came out a little over 10 years ago. I remember watching the advertisements for that movie, and going in, I expected just, a fun action movie with Keanu Reeves as the lead. And if Keanu Reeves is in it, he's running the show, I'm going to go see it. Like I think most people were thinking about. And also, this is Neo, you're going to go see it. This is John Constantine. You're going to see this movie. The action looked pretty cool, looked pretty slick. It looked like it had a little bit of style. So it was worth checking out. The movie ended up being harder hitting than I think it looked like. Does the new movie in the John Wick universe feel similar? Let's unpack it. This is a movie from the world of John Wick. Ballerina. Let's do it. One of the things that surprised me most about the original John Wick film, and you can make a case that this runs through each of the subsequent films in the mainline series, probably the most surprising thing that I came away from that film with was the sense of emotion, the sense of heart, and feeling. There's a lot of feeling that's smuggled into this movie, into that movie, and it's packaged in really cool, different action, different hand-to-hand combat, cars, a lot of car action, a lot of different stuff that was just new and fresh that we hadn't seen done before. This is the birth of gun fu. And that's immediately one of the other things that stands out about this movie was the type of action that's happening, how kinetic it is, and how unique it is, and how the gun work is happening in tandem with the hand-to-hand stuff. And that's sort of like the glossiness of it. But again, that heart in it. John Wick, for me, I think has always been a character that has it's buried. There's a tremendous amount of heart buried within this mythic figure of the Baba Yaga. And the original movie probably embodies that the most, because you're dealing with a guy who not only he's lost a lot of stuff. He's lost his wife, and then of course he loses his dog, but it's not about the dog. It's about what the dog represents. And that is it's surprisingly quite emotional. Where Ballerina differs is that it doesn't have the same level of heart to me. There's some in here, but it doesn't feel like it registers the same as it does in the original film. If you don't know, the story is about a woman who, as a child, lost her father to some bad guys. She gets taken in by a group of assassins, and so she's trained as a ballerina, or assassin, essentially, and she goes out to seek revenge against this group who was responsible for the death of her father. And along the way, you get a series of really cool action sequences. And that's it, really. That's the movie, that in a nutshell. And then, of course, and this is not a secret for those who are curious about this movie. You've seen the marketing, John Wick pops up a couple times in this movie. So cool. And for the most part, this is a solid action movie. It's a solid story in the world of John Wick. So I think it more than earns its place among the other films in the series. That's enough to, I guess, make you feel a little bit comfortable, if you haven't seen it yet and you're a fan of the John Wick movies, that Ballerina is right in there. It fits. My biggest issues with the movie are, firstly, I just get this out of the way, is the inclusion of John Wick. Because I feel like Eve, who's the character that Ana de Armas plays in this movie, she should be in a story that stands on its own. Now, I'd be okay if they showed him like in this on the side somewhere, once, and that's it, and you don't really, you know who it is, and that's all you need. I feel like Keanu Reeves' appearance is, while it's great, I feel like it takes away a little bit too much from the energy and the agency of Eve and her story. This is her journey. Something about bringing in John Wick to this movie feels like there was a fear that it wasn't going to hold up well enough without his inclusion, as if people wouldn't come to see it if John Wick wasn't in it. And that, I don't know, that kind of bothers me. I feel like it should have been, if this is a spinoff, let it be a complete spinoff, like The Continental was. John Wick is not in that show or that miniseries, but the world feels, it's the world of John Wick, and it feels like that. The quality, whatever, might vary, whatever. I don't. People have their varying opinions on The Continental and how it fits in and how they feel about it in the John Wick world. But John Wick is not all up in that. Why is he here? He shouldn't. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not complaining in the sense that, like, I think he shouldn't, like, he sucks. No, John Wick is great. Like, it's cool to see him in here, but I don't think he was necessary. That's probably my biggest issue with it, because it distracts me a little bit from this journey that I'm supposed to be on with Eve. The other piece I think that irked me a little bit is that Ana de Armas is a fantastic actor. This movie doesn't really give her nearly enough space to show that. She does have moments. There's little moments of, like, real actorly. In fact, one of those instances, it was a conversation with John Wick, where she shows real, and it's not like a big scene. She's just, it's not like a big dialogue heavy sequence. She says like one sentence, and the sentence is so full of feeling that I wanted more of that in the movie. This movie should have had more of that, I think. And I think that would have made it feel more on par with the original John Wick in terms of the emotion aspect of it. The reason I think John Wick, the original, works so well outside of the action is the big selling piece. But the reason why, the other half of that, is the build-up to the action. The movie spends a good third showing us John Wick as he's living his life, remembering his wife, and showing us the loss of it. We feel the loss of his wife. And then we feel what happens when the dog enters his life. Everything is set up really nicely. It's actually really well, meticulously set up. And there's a certain degree of restraint there before we start learning about John Wick's past and how serious this guy was. None of that works if we don't care about it in the first place. And everything about John Wick's wife and the dog and everything is built up before we get. Ballerina doesn't give us that. It gives a section with her dad, but we don't really get to care as much as we should, I think, about her dad and about why that relationship works. We don't feel the loss as much. We do get to see how cool the dad is, though. That's cool. But again, it's not enough to make us feel their relationship. When Eve grows up and she's, seeking revenge, we don't really feel the weight of what the relationship meant to her. That's what this movie's missing. There's pockets of it, of the feeling in the heart, the emotional stuff that allows the Armas to really flex her acting muscles. Like she's good at that. We don't get to see that. But what we do get to see is her flexing her physical muscles, her action hero muscles. And I'd forgotten about this during my viewing. I remembered, of course, this is her answer to her character in the last James Bond movie, The No Time to Die, which was a centerpiece scene. I think it was one of those scenes that you wanted more of, and you wanted her to return in the movie. She had that one sequence in Cuba. It was fantastic. That whole section in Cuba was tight in that movie. And so to have her pop up there and have that scene be played so well, she needed to be doing more in that area. That's a great example of her being able to do action very well. We know she can act. She can kick a little bit of butt, and that's cool. And so this is the response. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. It's a pretty good response to her situation in No Time to Die. Aside from that, though, it's pretty strong stuff. It's pretty good action. And if you're an action head, you're not going to be complaining about it. It's pretty good stuff. And they found ways to make the action unique from what you would see in the John Wick films. You see, there's a little bit of gun fu, but really, this movie is the action is different because Eve is different. The more I thought about it, the more I appreciated how much this movie leaned into the difference in size and stature from Eve compared to some of the men she might be coming across. And she fights mostly a lot of men in this movie, and how the movie leans into that, which feels very realistic. Like you would have to find a way, if you're Eve, to fight these big dudes that's convincing, I think, for us. But I think also, like, how would she really do that? She wouldn't fight a man like how another man might fight it, because there's obviously size difference, height difference, strength difference. There's all these different things that she has to sort of contend with. So she has to be cleverer. And I liked how the fighting is much more, it's less, there is a stylishness to it, but it's less polished. Even in the John Wick films, there's elements of it where there's some pieces that are rough around the edges that helps the fights. But I think here you get more of that because she's different size wise. It's a much more gritty, more brawly, rough and tumble barroom fight type of style of fighting. And, yes, she was also, her training is on display, so we get to see some of that. But she also has to sort of use everything in her surroundings at her disposal. Whatever's there, you got to use whatever's there, which is something John Wick does too. But there's just the way it's on display here is different, and it still manages to be cool. I actually really liked that. There's some really cool standout action sequences, and it is in keeping how those action sequences play out is in keeping with how they play out in the John Wick films. The way the action is captured, there's some really strong cinematography in it that captures the action really well. And there's no weird cutting. You can see from top to bottom spatially where everybody is in relation to each other. I think that kind of stuff, it's such a small thing, but that makes a huge difference in an action film where there's fighting happening and it's not so chaotic that you barely make out what's happening. It's pretty clearly captured, and you can see what's happening from sequence to sequence. It's really well done. Top-notch action stuff. I mentioned it didn't have as much feeling, I think, as the original John Wick film, and by extension, some of the other John Wick movies. But the other thing that surprised me was how much the theme of family played into this movie. It's so interesting. I feel like I've been watching a lot of things lately that have had family in some form pop up more prominently than you might see in other movies. So it's like literally back to back. Like it's so strange. But this movie is not an exception to that. Like obviously she's in this because of a family member. She lost a family member. But there are other threads and then like other degrees of separation with other family members. It's actually really interesting. Not just with Eve, but other characters in the movie have other family ties. And there's stuff, even with the shadowy organization she's going up against, that there's family stuff going on there that's surprising. And the way it ties in it's pretty surprising. I liked that. I liked those ideas. The only issue with that is that I don't think the family aspects of it were as realized as they could have been. I think the threads wrapped up in ways that were unexpected, which was it's good because I didn't expect it. But I feel like there was a more full way to approach that thread that might have actually added to this emotional piece that I was talking about. That's missing a little bit from the movie. Outside of that, this is a fun movie. It's pretty darn good. I wouldn't rank it higher. I wouldn't rank it super high in the series. I think it's definitely worthy to be a part of the conversation that like it stands among the John Wick movies. But again, that original one is probably still the best. Every succeeding film has something that is solid, that's a standout thing. Whether it's the fact that in the second John Wick film, there's a whole bunch of assassins and people after him, or in the third John Wick film, you get like Halle Berry and then horses and stuff, dogs and all kinds of stuff, dog action. The fourth film, you got that stair sequence. There's a whole bunch of, and then the Devil's Breath situation. There's a ton of different things that each of the successive John Wick films have. And I think Ballerina has at least two sequences that have standout like hooks in their action sequences that would be memorable for sure. And so that alone makes it worthy to stand up against. It's in the conversation with the John Wick movies. It's not like the lost child of the John Wick universe. It's definitely in the mix, and not because John Wick is in this movie, but it's because, again, on its own merits as an action film, and the way it stays in keeping from a production design standpoint and visually, how it's, even though it's different, the production design, everything feels cohesive. It feels like it's definitely part of the same universe. It's nothing about it feels off in that way. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're curious, I would recommend definitely check it out. Especially if you're a fan of these movies, I think you're gonna get down with this movie. Pretty sure that's gonna do it for this review. So if you're still here at the end of this one, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time for watching, and take it easy. I'll be back. Got some more reviews coming up. I've seen some new things, other things that I hadn't seen before that I'm really excited to talk about. Some things I've been late to the party on that now have to be discussions now. So tune in for those. But yeah, I'm out of here. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.